You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
Touchdown! A.J. Brown! That's beautiful. An interception by the Eagles. He is hit. They've got him again! They've got him back at the 26. He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles!
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Zach Chavalella, Eric Reese, and we are live here on Saturday morning. How you gentlemen feeling today?
Yeah. Not the most sturdy right now. I think sturdy is a good word. Not the most sturdy. So
are you Brock sturdy today?
Maybe. I mean, right? Like, that's about as much faith as I have in myself. Like, I feel like Brock Purdy, but like in the NFC Championship game before the arm happened. Like, I don't know. Like, I'm very. Here's the thing, guys. When you're like 35 and you have like 2 beers, you feel it the next morning still. That's the thing, and I'm there right now. I don't know, man. That's the story. I'm feeling okay. I'm ready to talk football. I'm feeling, otherwise fantastic, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, really. So that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Just waiting for the other poo to drop.
There it is. There it is. Right there. There it is. We're just literally talking about how I closed down the McDonald's yesterday, and now I'm waiting for that to. Yep.
That's brewing at the moment.
Yeah. Right after
I'm feeling a lot better than Eric.
I'm trying to. I'm hanging in there, man.
So I guess it will be a quick show today, but not too quick, hopefully. Big beer, lightweight.
Emergency ending to the pod.
Yeah, if you guys see me like disappear on YouTube, you just don't ask questions, brother. That's what I'm saying.
So let's get to the questions, right? Philly, Tampa Bay. It's a rematch of both times that Jalen Hurts has been eliminated from the playoffs. It has been at the hands of Todd Bowles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So he's facing a stout defense, right? That's missing some key parts. But the Eagles are also missing key parts, right? Devontae Smith, concussion protocol, he's out. Lane Johnson is itching to play. I think he has to go through 1 or 2 more tests to be considered playing. A.J. Brown's questionable, hamstring injury. How are you guys feeling about this game before the bye week?
Yeah, I mean, I feel surprisingly good, I'll call it. Looking at like the Bucs for the first, I think it was like the first 2 weeks, looked honestly like half decent. You look at how Mike Evans started the season, how Chris Godwin's taken off since. You look at some of the other pieces that they have on paper defensively, in the backfield, and it looks like a tough assignment, but they've kind of proven that they're just not in that upper echelon of NFC talent, and they have solid playmakers here and there. I think it's a good, when you look at their offense versus Philadelphia's defense, I actually think it's a good matchup on paper. And then beyond that, when you look at what, the offense of the Eagles have improved upon this season, specifically what Jalen Hurts has improved upon, I think it can help mitigate some of the negative matchup that they had before against Todd Bowles, right? So all things considered, I'm surprised myself that I'm saying this, but I feel pretty good heading into this game.
Feel better than the Eagles. Better than heading into the Saints week, right? Saw a lot of fight in that game, both sides of the ball. I do believe that Philadelphia is better equipped early on this season than they were last season, and it's funny to say that because they had more playmakers going into Tampa last year. What they didn't have is some like coaches who can actually run their scheme. I have more faith in Fangio. Here's the deal. I have more faith in Fangio after last week than I did the week before in the Falcons 2 minutes. If there's a way that even that performance, that defensive performance against the Saints is even able to be, even a little bit consistent across the board against Tampa this week, then we're talking about probably having Philadelphia, come out and win this game here. I think offensively, this is such a different offense here that we can't even really compare. And the part that sucks is you're not going to be able to really compare because A, it's a different coordinator, and B, it's going to be different talent on the field. Hopefully, AJ Brown's on the field, but at the same time, I would expect a limited role, even though it's AJ Brown. I wouldn't expect him to have the number of snaps that he normally does. So, yeah, I have a lot more faith than I did in the Eagles going into last week, but I'm not ready quite yet to. I don't know if I have that feeling yet that Philadelphia is going to take this one against Tampa.
It kind of seems like this Tampa at this point in the season, this Tampa Bay team is playing into the hands of the Eagles. So if they don't have AJ Brown, if they don't have Devontae Smith, Tampa Bay is currently allowing 4.9 rushing yards to opposing running backs, which plays hell in favor to Saquon Barkley. They've allowed 6 rushing touchdowns. It seems like this is a game where I think Jalen Hurts doesn't have to play hero ball, even though the notion out there is that people want to see him play hero ball. It kind of reminds me of the game when Jalen Hurts first started, his first start against the Saints, where it was the Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts game. I think they rushed for nearly almost like 200 yards combined against the Saints. And I feel like this week, it plays into their favor where they can have that kind of game as long as the game offensively is called in their favor, which we all have our criticism about just because we don't know who's overruling, who's not overruling. We don't know who's driving the car per se. Defensively, I completely agree with you. Vic Fangio adds a different wrinkle. I like where this defense is going. I mean, you guys saw the video of Saquon kind of hyping up Jalen Carter. I love that out of him, and seeing Jalen Carter just wake up. It feels like we could see something grow with this week, especially with the Bucs dealing with their injuries that they have. I mean, they have a ton of freaking people that are injured. I don't know. It could be one of those games that's it plays into the favor. It could be one of those games where it's just like, crap, like we should have had this, like kind of like the Atlanta Falcons game.
Yeah, like I look at there's they're missing. It looks like a third wide receiver, so it's not necessarily hurting and impacting the Tampa Bay. I think in a way that Philadelphia is missing, but Philadelphia is missing their a second, a third. Like they're outside of AJ Brown on maybe limited snaps. Like you're going right down to Dotson like immediately. On Tampa Bay's side of the ball, Antoine Winfield is not going to be playing. So that's going to be one huge part.
Elijah Cansey is also out, and I think
Vita Vea is
questionable.
So you got areas on that defense where they would help stopping the run, and they're not going to be there. So Barkley, you're going to be calling Barkley's number a lot in this game. And one of the things to me, I guess that I'm not used to is, and this is weird because when Miles Sanders was in Philadelphia, he was fine. When DeAndre Swift was used in Philadelphia, he was fine. When Barkley, obviously so far, I think he's playing, questionably MVP ball right now. Like he's probably in the candidates for that, kind of talk right now. It's early in the season, but of course, I don't think that I'm used to saying, hey, the Eagles game plan should be to run the ball almost every single week. But this year's been different. You kind of been forced that hand because there's the receivers, are in and out. Speaking of which, that that play on, that the hit on Smith was finally called an illegal play after everybody knew it was illegal when it happened. So thanks NFL.
Did you read up that the rookie that got fined $4,000, and then CJ Gardner Johnson got fined $10,000 for just removing somebody's mouthpiece.
Yeah, that's weird, right? You know?
Isn't that a little wild?
Yeah, like it's just like I don't know what the aim is. I don't know what the aim is on that sort of difference in fines. One literally concussed another player and was absolutely not required, because if you ask me, it looked like the forward progress was stopped, and then there was just a colossal hit that was unrequired.
And no whistle.
Yeah, nothing at all. It was just like, oh, here, we'll just allow this to happen, and then it's Gardner Johnson just doing his mostly normal antics. 10 G's. Okay. All right.
I do wonder if there's like a first time offender kind of difference in the.
I was wondering that.
Even if there is, though, one is a concussion and the other one is just like annoying.
I mean, you're finding him for the hit. You're not finding him for the concussion, and like I'm not in no way am I defending the hit, because I think it was a late hit. I think it should have been flagged. The whistles weren't blown, and that's on the refs. Like, we have to acknowledge the fault of the refs in this situation as well. And the other thing that I'm surprised has not been talked about more is what came after the play, with the whole spitting incident. It's like the whole thing, like start to finish, is just egregious.
Disgusting.
And I guess it's like, you can't prove it in a court of law or whatever, but I'm pretty sure that we have conclusive video evidence to, know what happened in that situation. So to not have a fine in that situation, I guess that's more so what I am, what I have a problem with, just because, like, the play should have been called, there should have been a flag on it. There honestly should have been a secondary flag. There's no way for the refs to see it, but like, I don't know, like if you're going to land on a guy who's already down, like, and struggling, mind you, and then spit on him after the fact, like, you're trash, dude. Like, that's it. Like, there's no other way around it.
I did miss that as the game was unfolding. But what I will say is, going back to that hit, it was so egregious. I was just like, what is this, Bounty Gate? Like, and then,
again.
It never ended, dude. It never ended.
Did you see the Saquon Barkley, like when he scored and they were actually pulling on his leg still, even though he's trying to get up?
Yeah. Eric, you're on mute, bud.
Just nod your head and just yeah.
He's on mute because he chose it. I just got the notification that I cannot unmute him because he chose to mute himself.
Oh. Well, yeah, let me go back and watch it. And then also, I was told to nod my head. So, yeah.
All right. So, with that being said, players to watch and when the Eagles take on Tampa Bay.
I was just reading the.
Was that the question? I was waiting for the question to finish.
You know what it was? Because I was going to see my player to watch, but then I was like, I don't want to just jump in and just bombard it. And then I was like, let me pause. And I was like, let me go. And let me pause.
I'm like, did my audio cut out? Like, I
saw another comment come in. And I was just going to ask you guys right there. That's
maybe before we get to players to watch. I don't think there was a fine for that. I don't recall that there was, right?
Nothing.
Which, to me, that was a crazy play too.
It was.
I think it's going to have to get to the point in
move.
Philadelphia where it's like, hey, we need to be the ones pushing people around, instead of just taking it. Because New Orleans, they came out the gates hot, and I think they kind of got put in their place by Philly, but they're going to continue to do this across the league for the rest of the year. So I would like to see Philadelphia to get as nasty, honestly.
Can I say something that, like, you may disagree with, and frankly, I don't give a shit. This is why we need to let Jalen Carter be who the fuck he was.
Yes,
talking his shit 1,000%. Last game. Like that. I had no problem with it. Like, I remember, I think I talked about this on the last pod, but like that happened, and he's gone, and Clint's like, smiling, holding him back. And my brother, and I'm not here to trash my brother. My brother's a great guy. Is freaking out, like furious, like, you got to rein that in, like, you can't be doing. And I'm like, no, you got to let it go. Because we need.
Yeah, that was a long time coming. I feel like
And
Gotta let the
listen,
big dog
here's the
eat.
thing: like Jalen Carter constantly gets like the Fletcher Cox comps, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: he's not. First of all, he's not Fletcher Cox. He's not going to be Fletcher Cox. Like, can he be a Fletcher Cox quality like level player? For sure, he's not that type of guy. Though. Fletcher Cox was a guy who was reining people in. He was keeping BG in check. This is like Fletcher Cox talent with Brandon Graham attitude, and I think that is what could make him better than both of those guys in the long term. So, I need him like. I don't need him like in Ndamukong guys out there. But I need him doing what he's doing now. I have no problem with anything that he's doing now, and I need that to happen even more. I mean, Brian, you talked about the Saquon video, him talking to Jalen, like encourage that even more. I need him to know that he's dominant. He is the next dominant defensive tackle in the league, and I need him to talk that talk, and more importantly, messing people up like within the confines of the game.
Right. Show that mean streak, and also when that you've talked. I'm sorry, you've walked the walk. Then go ahead and talk that talk. That's exactly what happened in New Orleans. This will be sweet.
I'm 1,000% behind that. I think the Eagles need a little swagger to them, and that was the rave last season, right? Like we didn't have CJ Gardner-Johnson. Defense didn't have that swagger. We don't necessarily need that swagger just from CJ. We needed that like this year. We need that from the defensive front, and for Jalen Carter, it was necessary. It should have been allowed because listen, everybody was talking their talk. Like, why can't our guys do the same thing? Just let them flourish. Don't limit the kid.
And can I say this too? Like, let's not forget the Keon Mitchell of it all. Like that dude's talking too. Like he's
going up to the opposing sideline and talking.
This is what we need, man. Like, I gotta say, like, this youth is like, it's getting me excited for the future of defense in Philadelphia, man. Because like Jalen Carter, Keon Mitchell, so talented, so like unquestionably talented, and then they got that little bit of attitude in them as well. I mean, next thing, here's the thing that we still do need though, right? And maybe Trot can be this. Dean can't be this. Maybe Trot can be this. But we need that angry thumping linebacker. Like that's the next thing for me. Like we got the safety that Jaws, in CJ. We got the corner who's gonna get right in your face. We got the D tackle who's not afraid of anybody. Like we need that thumping linebacker who's just gonna. I mean, he's gonna let you know it all day long. That's what we need next.
I was gonna say put Bond on the mixtape, dude.
I mean, but Bond is like that's not his personality. Yeah, like, that's quiet. He will deflate you in how good he's been playing, but like he's not. I mean, first of all, his hits are not that heavy, and then on top of that, like he doesn't have that kind of like he's not like when I say Trot. Now I'm talking about Trot the father, not Trot the son or the third Trot, but we're talking about like. A guy who will be feared by defenses. And I think that's the difference that we have there. Like you have to plan for Zach Bond. I mean this as no discredit to him because I think he's been fantastic in Philadelphia. You're not fearing Zach Bond. And there's few players in this league at any position, but also at linebacker who you like fear. So that's the kind of thing that I'm looking to get next.
Do you think we see and we'll get to our players to watch it. But do you think we see a sighting of Devin White in this game, being that this is kind of like
hell no?
Okay.
Nope. He hasn't. I mean, it's not that. Okay, here's the deal. Like, I don't know exactly what's being said between Fangio and him. I don't know what the relation is between him and the coach, and what the conversation is like. I'm clearly not in the room, but I will say this: at this rate with Dean and Bond on the field, I will say in layman's terms, he hasn't earned the opportunity to face his former team just for former team's sake. Yeah, I mean, like if he was on another team, would he have an opportunity to start? I still think he's a fringe NFL starter, but unfortunately, in Philadelphia this year, when he was expected to start before week 1, it's just not the case by week.
But what the hell happened? He was taking first team reps all off season, preseason, and then just because he has a bum ankle before week 1, that's it. You lost your job. No
Yeah,
sick
I think
days over here.
schematically, like if you look at what he does versus what the other linebackers do, I think that's kind of where it gets lost, right? So obviously, what does he do well? He rushes well for a linebacker. You have Zach Bond already, right? So you have a little bit of an overlap there. There's not a secondary skill that Devin White really possesses at this point. You know, a guy like Dean is more solid against the run, and for all the crap that he gets in coverage, is a better coverage linebacker than Devin White at this point. And then Jeremiah Trotter won, people over left and right throughout camp. So I think that's where it really stays. But as far as like, would he get an opportunity this week?
No.
Just thinking about the kind of guy that Fangio is, I almost feel like the fact that Devin White's playing his former team and the emotional effect that could have on him is even more of a reason that Fangio would not want him to play this week.
And this is and that's in that kind of instance, like, if not week 4 against Tampa, then when would you see White? And it's as
I think that's my
as
big
the
question.
linebackers stand right now, right? And I don't think you would see White. I think White would just be a guy that you're expected to trade by this point.
But does he have
for
any
what?
trade value at this point?
Yeah,
or-
that's what I'm saying. Like, for what and to who knows, right? At this point, but yeah, he's probably the only going to see starting snaps in the defense if the linebacker goes down.
It's tough to see because I mean at least I was really big on the signing of him coming here. I thought it would be a home run move for the Eagles. But I think at this point it is what it is. Players to watch. I'm going Saquon just because not only is he my fantasy franchise player, but it just feels like this has to be a huge Saquon game. I mean they're averaging 4.9 yards 4.9 yards per carry against them. Saquon has been coming into his own. I think you have to rely on the read option a little bit, rely on the run game because you don't have much confidence on a Jahan Dotson at this moment, Paris Campbell. Is Johnny Wilson playing? Is he still injured or?
I thought Johnny Wilson was fine now.
Okay. If Wilson is out there, then Wilson.
Yeah, he's healthy.
But to me, it's a big run game. It reminds me a lot of that Saints and Eagles game back then. It just, you got to rely on the run and just don't allow the defense to make Jalen Hurts one-dimensional.
Yeah, Wilson's healthy. He'll be out there. But you kind of nailed the two that I think were, pretty clear from the jump. I mean, as far as we were talking about earlier, there is opportunity for Barkley to have a day on the ground and kind of lead the charge in offense. Obviously, you're going to want to see what Hurts, can do with his receiving crew he has this time around. I'm going to stray away from those two completely, and I'm going to go right to the offensive line. And if Lane Johnson is not playing, then my player to watch for, better or worse, and hopefully, as well as he filled in last week, will be Fred Johnson.
Great story around him as well.
I liked him in the preseason. There's a few offensive linemen, like depth linemen. I was like watching them play and figured, okay, I'm a little bit comfortable with the backups, here in case somebody gets hurt. And you have to kind of talk about Lane over the last few years. He's somebody who will eventually miss time for an injury of some sort. And it's nice to see that, Fred Johnson coming in against New Orleans and just doing exactly like Duck and CJ calling him Big Fred. But Duck said he played his ass off. He absolutely did. So, yeah, on offense, Fred Johnson. Did you, Brian, say defensive player as well?
I didn't. I
want to go back around the horn and after Zach gives his offense.
Okay. Maybe give me a moment, damn, and then we can circle back to defense.
Wow, you are hostile this morning.
I was trying to set that up.
So before I get to my player, because it'd be so easy just to hop on the Barkley bandwagon. What Philadelphia needs to do today? It's not a shot. Like I'm just saying, like it's so easy for all of us to say Saquon. That's all I'm saying. You're just being you've been too sensitive lately. I think we can go back to a lot of the chat and we can talk about like I'm just saying. Remember when we were talking about a certain video that was shared in the FTB chat, and you thought I was talking about you, but I was talking about somebody else. It's been happening a lot lately. I'm just
Because
saying.
you've been attacking me a lot lately. I feel
We might want to check
harmed.
that.
I did call Brian out with the captions talking about how he's a Giants fan.
Well, that did happen. That did happen. My only point was to talk about Saquon before I pick, a unique name for player to watch. What and this is about the whole back group, honestly. Like, so this is whether they include Kenny Gainwell. I would like to see Will Shipley, but we'll see what happens with that. Tampa Bay, for as much credit as they've gotten defensively, and deserved in some parts this season, they're giving up a touchdown a game on the ground to running backs. But more importantly than that, they lead the league in receptions given up to running backs per game and yardage given up to running backs per game. This is an opportunity, especially when you have your receivers down, you have to utilize your running backs. Now, I'm not expecting them to go into like dual back formation left and right. I just don't think they're going to change the offense that much. But like they did in week 1 against the Packers, I think that you do have to utilize your running backs. And so whether that's running Saquon on wheel routes, whether, you're just running simple curves as dink and dunk, whatever the case is, you have to utilize these backs in the passing game as well, because I would call it top receiver only because Devontae's out and A.J. Brown, I think, will be limited. I hope I'm wrong, but I think will be limited in this game. Dallas Goedert, the problem is that Tampa Bay bottles up tight ends pretty well. So he's going to have some resistance. So I think that he's going to be able to overcome some of that. I do. But you're going to need some secondary sources of passing pressure, right? So to be able to utilize those backs, I would like to see something out of Jahan Dotson. I would like to see something out of Paris Campbell, Johnny Wilson. I don't know that that's the case. So you got to rely on the backs there. Offensively, this is the Jalen Hurts game. That's the player to watch offensively. This is a guy who has struggled against Tampa Bay in the past. Now, he's reading defenses a lot better. He's picking up blitzes a lot better. Prove that you can do that against, there's this thing in MLB The Show, right, when you're doing the My Career mode where you say you're batting and you go up against a pitcher and it's like a boss battle. Like there's a whole cutscene and everything like that.
Right, yeah.
Todd Bowles is Jalen Hurts' boss, in the sense that he has to overcome. This is the boss of his dungeon that he's got to overcome, right?
So are you saying Todd Bowles is Bowser?
Todd Bowser.
Todd Bowser.
Call it as you will. But the point is, this is Jalen Hurts' boss battle that he has to deal with. Overcoming this will go a long way to him earning a lot more respect, not just locally, but nationally as well.
And it plays in Jalen Hurts. It's weird because, it's playing in Jalen Hurts' favor because he's been great against the blitz this season. Something that we've all been asking for the last several seasons was hey, figure something out against the blitz. They figured it out, and what better way to test it than to test it against the one coach who has completely exposed Jalen Hurts in the playoffs and being the only coach to eliminate Jalen Hurts from the playoffs than to do this weekend. Defensively, players to watch. I want to say I'm going to go just because of what Zach brought it up earlier, right? I love the progress that we're seeing out of Quinyon Mitchell. There's a huge chip on his shoulder, and the swagger's there, and the fact that the secondary is just doing their part. I'm saying Quinyon Mitchell's a player to watch because I feel like this is the week he gets his pick. We finally see the interception as opposed to see the batted ball. We finally see him just kind of just flourish a little bit more. I'm going Quinyon, 1,000%.
I would have said Quinyon and literally everything that you said about Quinyon there. So I'm going to switch it up. Because that's, you ran away with that one. That's awesome there. Dang, man, it's kind of hard to pick. I'm looking at defensive ends for Philadelphia because there is a matchup there. And I think I'm going to go back and say, you know what, Milton Williams. Because Milton Williams is somebody, and, I always bring up his name. I always say that, Morgan will be proud that we're talking about him. But his motor has been relentless, and it's shown already this season. There is a matchup with Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has a right tackle that is questionable. If he misses this game, you have an opportunity to kind of, set a pass rush. Now, we all know in Fangio's scheme that with the secondary, it kind of makes sense for, that if the coverage is there, the rush will also be there. I think this time, if we have such a matchup on defense where you'll probably have a rush more times than not, and that's, despite the secondary. So in this situation, I'm looking for Baker Mayfield to be pretty dang uncomfortable, and it's because of Milton Williams. And if not, I mean, I can definitely see Jalen Carter, making a presence there, but I'm going to be focusing on Milton Williams.
I love that pick, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think Milton Williams is kind of a guy to watch every week. For the reasons that you laid out, like
right.
He's been relentless. He's exciting. We have here in the comments, Dave, you mentions Bryce Huff, last chance in the saloon for him. I'll be honest, train's already left the station for me, man. Like I if he surprises me, he surprises me, but I'm not putting my time and effort into that. I'm looking at guys who have shown that they can produce on this defense. So, I mean, the player to watch for me is Jalen Carter. He had a great game against the Saints. I need to see him follow up on that. What I can't see is him kind of like resting on his laurels, being satisfied with his performance last game. I need him to take last game, and I need him to, use it as fuel again in this game to even be a little bit better, just a little bit better each day. It's a famous phrase that Tyrese Maxey says about himself every day. Like every day, just be a little bit better. And that's what I need to see out of Jalen Carter here. The one thing that I do also want to say, and maybe we can talk about this more after, I do think special teams is going to be interesting for Philadelphia. Not having Britton Covey, obviously going to make a pretty big difference. Want to see what it's like in specifically the punt return game. And it looks like Cooper Sharp-John is going to get his opportunity to work the punt return game. So
yeah,
for me, I'm pretty excited to see that. Like it's a relatively smaller part of the game. Having Covey out, I think, is a huge loss, but filling that with Cooper DeJean, I think just makes it feel a little bit better.
Also, you put a note on the special teams here. If we have a special team player to watch, Jake Elliott, Nick Sirianni, you have a kicker. Effing use him.
Yeah, I do, but I do want to just bring this up real quick because and this is something that maybe we may, I don't know if we want to flesh it out on a pregame pod. Maybe this is a Tuesday conversation. But talking about Bryce Huff, mostly talking about Hassan Reddick here, but talking about Bryce Huff. First of all, would I swap them? 100%. I don't even care. Like,
would you? Because all right,
I would swap them. Like, listen, here's the thing. As long as I have the guarantee that Hassan is playing for Philadelphia, I will, because
right, okay,
like that's the only thing.
Well, Howie wouldn't make the move without getting that guarantee. He's not a Joe Douglas.
And that's the point. That's exactly the point. And do I think that Howie would make the move with Hassan getting a nice, rich contract? No, I don't. He may have to renegotiate his salary and take less, actually, because I think his cap hit's like about $8 million, and the Eagles have about 11 on the cap. So I don't think they want to lose all $8 million against that 11. So I would take him. I think Hassan wants to come back in theory. I think when the Eagles lay out the reality of the situation, he probably won't. But if you're like, let's talk about this in like a Madden vacuum, like, would I trade, Bryce Huff or Hassan Reddick? I would, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe, from what we've seen in history with Reddick, that clearly there's no contest. But if we're talking about this season, these players are the same. These players are exactly the same this season. One's an Oticon, the other one's on the field, but his headspace is an Oticon. So, it's all the same.
I mean, to your point, you are talking about a guy who hasn't really gone through training camp, has not been playing this season. Like, this is the one thing, you bring up a great point, Eric. Like, this is the one thing that I think people also need to be aware of when you talk about trading for Hassan Reddick at this point. You're not getting mid-season Hassan Reddick. Like,
no.
You're getting a guy who really needs to ramp up. So I'm not looking to give up any real value for a guy who not only is like a contract malcontent, but like on top of that, sat out from 2 teams, including yours, and then on top of that is just not in game shape. Like, I don't care how well he's been working out. I don't care. You're not playing football. You're not in game shape. So I have concerns about that from that angle.
There will be a lot of rust in there, but I feel like if you were to in some universe this actually did happen and they did this swap, you get an advantage with Hassan Reddick because you get a guy that's familiar with the scheme after being under variations of it under Jonathan Gannon and Sean Desai. But you could rotate him in and out until he's in that game shape you need him to be. I mean, I feel like the Eagles need a game wrecker on the outside, right? And there's not. I think we spoke about it in the last episode, Zach, where there's not many options out there.
No,
they had all the options on the offseason. They went with Bryce Huff over Danielle Hunter and among other people, and it's kind of like it's slim pickings for a team that needs that outside rusher because, I mean. To give this player a little bit more credit, right? Josh Sweat is actually in the top, I think, 5 of most pressures in the NFL right now. We're not seeing him get home, but he's doing his job. And imagine having a guy on the opposite side of Josh Sweat doing their job, what this defense could actually look like.
That's exactly. And when I look at the depth chart for the Eagles, updated obviously pretty regularly, Huff is not even a guy that's technically you call it starter. So that's who you brought in. You brought in a guy forgotten as quickly as he came. I think to your point, Brian, you're going to see a complimentary piece to Sweat because it's not going to be somebody like Huff. And that's fine. I mean, Brandon Graham is somebody who ageless wonder is still going to get in the backfield. So between those two, then we're talking about a matchup here where I think I would expect the Eagles to have pressure get into the backfield. It's been one of the key points that Philadelphia really hasn't been consistent with all season long. I mean, it's early to the season, week 4, but nonetheless, over the last 2 weeks, now we're talking about, okay, half the games we're getting pressure, half the games not, but it's a good trend. So, I think Philadelphia's figured it out, and this week will be a, kind of still staying on the right track.
Can I just say, like, this is we're getting off topic now. But Brian, you did bring up the fact that there's not really a lot out there. One thing that I've been kind of watching throughout the season is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are 0-3 now. Their bye week is week 12. I would say, this is my speculation, that it is very possible for the team to have 3 or fewer wins by week 12, looking at their schedule. They're going up against because they're going up, and it's not like they're not all world beaters, but you're talking about the Patriots, who've been a lot better than expected. You're talking about the Texans, who they have to play the Colts, and those are division games. Those can always go, another way. Who really knows? The Bears are looking better. Most importantly, their defense is looking solid, and they're getting healthier on offense. You look at a lot of these matchups, Minnesota, Detroit also in there, and I think I mentioned Philadelphia, but if not, that's obviously one of the major ones. Things could get ugly for Doug Peterson and company. One thing that I talked about, with Dylan, Philaticus, if people, are familiar with the M-Lot and the Maestro, but there is a possibility that, and I hate to say this because I don't want this to be the case, that Doug Peterson may not even be there.
That's why
when they come to Philadelphia.
Yeah,
that's how bad their season's going. And I don't think it's Doug Peterson's fault. Let me get that out of the way. But the point that I'm getting to with all of this is, if that is the case and it continues to progress that way, I'd have to look at the salary numbers. This is just very early thinking. I'm just going to throw out a couple names. I don't mind the idea of targeting a guy like Josh
Ronald Darby. Darn.
Yeah, Ronald Darby. But Josh Hines-Allen or Eric Armstead are 2 guys that I'm like, all right, like I could swing a mid-season trade for one of these.
Did Josh sign a contract extension this offseason?
I believe he did. I can get that here. If we're looking at his contract.
While you're looking that up.
Yeah, he did. He signed a 5-year. Oh, it's a big one. He signed a 5-year, $141 million contract. So that would probably bankrupt them if they traded him in the first year of that.
Yeah.
So probably Eric Armstead is more so the way that you're going, which I would take Eric Armstead, honestly.
Trevor Lawrence did not look too happy and with Doug Peterson. I don't know if it was at Doug Peterson or if he was just not happy in general, which is probably the case.
Well, that feeling better be mutual because Trevor Lawrence sucks, man. I'll be flat honest with you.
Yeah, he's sort of he's my back
out of college.
He's my backup in fantasy, and I looked around and I was like, ooh, Andy Dalton. Like
Red Rocket, yeah. Single-handedly revived Deontay Johnson's career.
That's what I was gonna say. I was like, single-handedly. I think he came in for one game against Philadelphia, and I was like, how is he this good? But then again, it was when we were playing that soft coverage and everything was open all the time, so everybody was good.
This is actually a name that I'm very curious about. Have been curious about for a while. But I feel like he did sign an extension recently as well, right?
Regardless, I don't think Vegas would ever get rid of him.
That's like their franchise cornerstone.
Key focus in Raiders culture and in the fan base.
It's like
that would be like the Eagles trading Fletcher Cox when what was it, the 4-12 year? Like it still wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
All right. So a little off topic, but keys to the game. I think I mentioned it earlier. Controlling the clock. Wow, again happened.
Oh my God!
Again.
Can't control that.
Goodness, man!
Better
Get your mind out of the gutter. What you do in your free time is none of our business.
Controlling the clock against the Tampa Bay
South
Buccaneers.
Carolina Gamecocks, dude. That's what he does. Clearly, dude.
See, what you want to do is you want to control the penis. So once you do that, then I meant clock. I'm sorry.
We're using scientific words for time and algorithms.
Listen, it's football talk. And if you don't know that, I'm sorry. Like we're getting into game speak here, but in football, you call it the penis is what you do.
Yeah, that's just all-time football. I got you.
Yeah. You got the game penis. You got the 40-second game penis that you got to manage. You got to maintain. And I'll tell you this: one problem that Andy Reid always had when he was in Philadelphia, he didn't know how to manage the penis.
Controlling the clock against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with your run game is going to be key.
Segment so much.
It's going to be key to the Eagles winning, keeping the ball out of the hands of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. I don't want to see a close battle again like they had against New Orleans and Atlanta. This is a team that's very capable of going above that. I do understand they have the limitations, but controlling the clock, mastering the run game. I want to see. You guys are terrible. I want to see Jalen Hurts just come out of his shell a little bit and just silence the critics and have that kind of game that Dak was mentioning earlier. But I don't want to push the envelope, if that makes sense. I don't want to put him in that kind of situation where he feels like he has to do that. So my thing is just rely on Saquon, control the game, and just go from there.
There you go. You see, you control the game. Yeah, a lot of it does come down right to running the ball. I think that's the plan on offense here. I'm not expecting anything aggressive as far as passing the ball. Smart plays. Jalen's got to keep it smart, and I would say keep it intermediate to short. Let the yards after the catch really take over. That again, what we saw from Goddard against New Orleans is ideal in this situation again. But running the ball has to be the bulk of the offense, I think. Defensively, hopefully those matchups do pay off on the defensive line. And I agree with you, Brian, 100% from earlier. I think this is the game where you see Quinyon Mitchell pick off Baker Mayfield. So, yeah, the keys to the game there. I mean, those are, force a turnover, run the ball, really.
So, I mean, force turnover. Yes, absolutely. I would say win the turnover battle, right? Because it's a double-edged sword, right? Because not only, do you have to make sure that you are actually forcing them to turn over the ball, Jalen cannot continue to turn over the ball. That is a major key for me, especially in the face of the splits. Like there's going to be that pressure, and he's responded well to that this season. But again, you have to maintain that composure in this matchup as well. Not having Antoine Winfield out there is honestly huge for Philadelphia. Even still, like it doesn't. You don't need to be like an all-pro level playmaker to pick the ball off from Jalen this year. Like, I'm not trying to be an ass. Like, that's just how it has been. We've seen, and whether you want to blame the route, whether you want to blame Jalen, like, I think they're all a part of the equation. We've seen some throws that, like, I mean, it just can't happen, basically. So in this game, whether he's holding onto the ball like on the run, whether he's, making sure that he actually gets the snap correctly, which part of that's on Cam Jurgens, obviously, or whether or not, he's making sure that he's not forcing passes, which, as long as he's not trying to do so to Devontae in the end zone again, which literally can't happen in this game, that I feel a little bit better about that already. But that's a major key for me, is winning the turnover battle, because you have to address it on both sides. After that, you have to trust your secondary, right? That's where Tampa is winning these games. Baker Mayfield is a talented quarterback. Is he an elite quarterback? No, he is not. Does he have elite playmakers? I would say relatively. Yes. He's got upper echelon talent, when you're looking at both of those starting wide receiver spots, right? Mike Evans, I think, is Mr. Consistency. I don't think he's ever been a top 3 type or wide receiver in the NFL. But if you look at, he's probably had a top 3, performance in the last 7 years. Like, if you go like last 5, parse it however you want, last 7 years, he has been at the top, Mr. Consistency, 1,000 yards every single year. Chris Godwin, explosive, right? That being said, Eagles got Darius Slay and Keon Mitchell back there, right? So as long as you have competent play by your safeties, which admittedly is a concern, trust your guys on the outside, because they can make all the difference in this game. I think that's going to really hinder Tampa Bay. That's part of the reason why I think this is actually a good matchup for Philadelphia.
All right. And I promise you all that we are working on our chime for Eric's favorite segment of the day.
Oh, my God.
We're going to go with predictions. Who wants to go first?
I think I'm going to make the chat happy here based on history. Listen, I think the sum of all parts so far says that Tampa has been the safer team. And I think the safer team, meaning the team that's not going to turn the ball over as much, is probably going to be the winner here. And like Zach, your point was perfect in the key of the game. I think it's going to be there's going to be slightly more scoring than the unexpected whatever that final score was, 15-12 from last week. So my prediction. And again, this is going to be a big game for the secondary, really, on defense as well for Philadelphia. If Philadelphia wins, it's going to be because they mitigated the passing attack from Tampa. But we'll say I think it's going to be 20-17 Buccaneers. So I'm going to roll with that's my prediction. But I mean, it's so close to where I really say 2017 Buccaneers, just because I think it's going to come down to Sirianni not putting, leaving points on the board, because he's going to be too aggressive. And there's probably going to be 3 to 6 points in this game that could have made a difference.
Okay. What do you think, Zach?
I don't disagree. However, I do have a different outcome. I think that it is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be higher scoring than the last, not overly high scoring. I also have the Tampa Bay Bucs with 20 points. However, I do have the Eagles winning the game 23-20.
Okay.
All right. That's fair. I'm going 27-24. I think Philly we actually see a more, oddly enough, complete game out of them for 4 quarters. But I do think they'll have a bit of a stretch lead entering the 4th. Buccaneers make a little bit of a late run to draw it close, but Philly ends up closing it just because that's been their style for God knows how long at this point. But I do have them winning this game and heading into the bye with a positive record, as opposed to. Are you serious? And I'm being sensitive.
I love the long setup for
yeah.
jokes. Like I knew from the second I started doing it that was going to be the outcome, and I was so excited. It worked out just like I thought. It was great.
I'm sorry ignoring it. Yeah, whatever. I have no words after that.
He's wordless.
I'm wordless. But yeah, I mean, so two people having Eagles winning, one person having the Bucs win. If Eric's string of luck continues, then the Eagles will win for sure. We don't know.
We don't know. Never know. You'll never know.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, we do appreciate you all joining us this Saturday morning. Appreciate you guys for being consistent with us as we try to be consistent with you guys.
Thank you.
Be sure to stay tuned to Tuesday night at 7:30. We'll recap the game. Hopefully it's an Eagles victory. And if it's not, then it's going to be a very, very depressing conversation at this point.
1 o'clock tomorrow, guys. 1 o'clock. Hey, if anybody's forgetting what time it is, like me, because time is just a man-made construct. 1 o'clock.
One of what, Brian? One of what?
I'm Brian Cameron alongside Zach Giavalella, Eric Reese. We're flipping the birds.
Go Birds!
Yes, sir.
Flip